Welcome to Gut Punch, the podcast that explores life-changing moments. Hosted by Kathryn Lancioni, a seasoned educator with personal insights into resilience. Kathryn shares how life can change in an instant, shaping our path forward. Each episode features inspiring guests who face their own gut punch moments. Guests share their journeys through loss, upheaval, and triumph. What to expect: honest conversations, lessons in resilience, inspiration for growth. Join Kathryn as she highlights courage and perseverance in every story. Gut Punch is a reminder that there is always a path forward. Be part of the conversation. Register now to join Kathryn for today's journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gut Punch podcast. My name is Kathryn Lancioni, and I'm your host for today's episode. Today, we'll be joined by Jason Reid. Jason is the founder of an incredible organization called 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝘀𝗲 and he's someone who, unfortunately, had a pretty terrible gut punch. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Kathryn. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. So, Jason, if you could share a little bit about your background, and then we can kind of go into your gut punch, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own construction companies primarily across the United States. I've been in that business for 39 years now. We have 4 different brands and employ a few thousand people across the U.S. with my partners. And
Okay.
I own a bunch of other companies that I've started, but I've also failed at. People don't understand how the entrepreneurial world works all the time. It's not everything's a success. I've failed at over 30 companies that I've started thinking that I was going to be successful, right? I've been almost bankrupt 2 or 3 times in my life where, going home and wondering whether I'm going to have to sell the house or lose the house and not talk to my wife or kids about it. That's kind of the life I've always led. So I've always been, I'm the kind of guy, my life is never something I look at and go, every day is going to be a happy day. In fact, my phone starts ringing at 5 a.m. and it's not with good stuff. It's always with problems, right? Outside of being an entrepreneur, I also coach CEOs because I enjoy doing that for fun. And so, there's 10 or 12 CEOs that when they call me, they're not calling me, I've got great news. No one ever calls Jay with great news.
No one ever called for that reason. That's right.
Even this morning, 5:30 in the morning, I get a text and ICE had decided to pull over a truck of my guys just randomly and just pick them all up. And we had thought they were all illegal, of course, because they had the paperwork, but
Right.
they just randomly picked them all up and took them away. So that is my life, right? So I expect my day to be full of challenges, and that's what I'm here to do. But some challenges are worse than others, and we can get into that if you want.
Yeah, no. And, just to build on what you said, like life is not a linear path. I mean, I think, it's like you wake up every day, maybe with an idea of things that you want to get accomplished and maybe with a plan. I don't know if it's possible. And then something happens, whether it's, I don't know. I mean, I know I started New Year's for January 1st. It snowed in New York City and I was pulling out of a parking lot with my daughter and a snowplow backed into us.
Yeah.
And okay, like this is really not the way to start a new year. And the guy that hit us, who completely admitted to the cops that he hit us, was like, well, I guess, it's a crash of good luck.
Well, at least nobody was hurt.
No, nobody was hurt. The car was actually still drivable. So that was how I started the year. And I certainly did not wake up that morning thinking that was going to happen. So, no. And for those folks that listen to my podcast, know that I definitely have learned that life is not linear. But yeah, and I think that just touching on what you're saying about the entrepreneur world, I mean, I know, I coach a lot of female founders. And we all know that everyone wants to have that unicorn, but there are so many of them that actually come. And, everyone has the greatest idea until it doesn't work out. So I think that there's so much that comes to that entrepreneurial mindset and that ability to just kind of pick up and move on and roll into the next thing. So I really applaud what you're doing. I think it's incredible that you've succeeded and failed as much as you have. That's good stuff.
It's just the way it's the way life works. I think people have this opinion that life is supposed to be rosy and fun and great, and people's lives that are maybe how they view them as more successful than them. They had it lucky, or they had something special happen to them, or why am I not as successful? And I think they miss out the fact that everybody has their challenges.
Everybody has their challenges, and to quote a girlfriend of mine, everybody has something. And I think not everyone is willing to admit that they had a something. I know personally with what you and I what I went through, I struggled with how open did I want to be with it because, I went through this, as we've discussed, this crazy health experience, and I don't want a pity party. I got through it and I'm okay, but I got through it and I've changed. And I think that part of success and failure, especially failure, is realizing that there is growth that comes from that. So rather than being hard on yourself, being self-critical, is realizing the lessons that are learned. And I think sometimes it takes time, to realize those lessons. But, if it did, what is that saying? If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I guess, for me, who almost did feel like I was killed by my bacteria infection, I do feel like I'm stronger, but it can be hard sometimes.
It is. And how we pick ourselves up and move on is the most important thing we have. The resilience, the ability to be resilient is the most important skill that we all have.
Yes.
And it's just because life's not going to get any easier. And
No.
I'm not a downer. I mean, I've got a great life and I have so many wonderful things in my life, my wife and my kids. But, if we get to my story, the reality is, 8 years ago, I was doing my thing. I was working, building my businesses, spending time with my kids, spending time with my wife. In fact, I was away on celebrating my wife's birthday when my son Ryan, who was just turned 14, decided to take his own life.
So where were you?
We were in 𝗘𝗶𝗀𝗄,
And
and it was nighttime. It was 11 o'clock at night. And no matter how many friends you have and how many rich friends you have, you're not getting a plane out of 𝗘𝗶𝗀𝗄 at midnight. And we didn't get back to San Diego till like 3 the next day or something like that. And he was in the hospital on life support. And we did that for 4 or 5 days, knowing that he really wasn't there.
okay.
And then we took him off life support. And that obviously changed our lives forever.
Yes.
We didn't see it coming. We didn't really talk about mental health because we didn't think we needed to.
Right.
Ryan was one of those kids that had lots of friends and was always happy and always in a good mood and never seemed depressed. A little grumpy from time to time, but I had 4 teenagers. They
Yeah.
all seemed grumpy from time to time.
Yes.
And it was life changing. And I think when something like that happens, you have a couple of choices, and you can pour yourself into a bottle, and become very quiet. You can become, just stay away from people, move away. You can get divorced. I mean, 85% of people get divorced. Families fall apart.
Right.
And, we decided to not let that happen. And, we decided to lean in and go through all
Yeah.
the hard times together. And we're still here. And, it's, family wise, we're great. My wife
Yeah.
and I have been together for 33 years now, I guess it is.
That's it.
My oldest and his wife and my grandchild live 7 minutes away, and they've got another grandbaby coming. My daughter and my son-in-law live here on the property with us, and they just went through IVF, and God willing, we got another baby coming.
Yep.
And then Kyle lives up in Portland, and we're
Wow.
all really, really close. And the only thing that sucks in my life is not having Ryan.
Did Ryan's passing affect you? Like how are you different now than you were before that happened? Like what was the change?
Well, I mean, it changed me a lot, I guess, because, I didn't pay attention to things like mental health because I didn't think it was my thing. Didn't think it had to affect my family. And I leaned in right away and started a foundation to make a difference.
Yeah.
I did a couple of TEDx talks. I did a Goalcast. I did a movie called Tell My Story, which you can see on Amazon Prime. We built an organization, did another movie called What I Wish My Parents Knew, that goes into schools to talk to parents about what they, what mental health's really all about. We focusing on teaching parents how to own their kids' mental health like they own their kids' physical health, how to have conversations with their kids. We built programs and products and things that help parents that way. Our last movie just came out. It's called Shift, which is all about how kids can actually improve their own mental health through having hobbies and interests and something they're passionate about besides going to school and their parents and their friends. So from that way, I was never a charitable person. I was never a person that did anything besides focusing on I view that all of that was my view on that part of life was I was going to work my butt off.
Yep.
When I retire, I would spend time helping people that way, because right now I'm helping people in their business.
Right. And which I think is a very common belief, honestly.
Yeah. But that sped up that process. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So now I spend a good deal of my time speaking on podcasts like this, trying to get the message out about mental health. Now, how else did it change me? Well, there's a part of you that will always be empty.
Yes.
I'm probably a little softer than I used to be. My kids, my wife.
Yeah.
I have, I'm kind of a hard driving guy. And I just, I slow down and ask people a bit more how they are, as opposed to just, let's get this done. So I'm probably a better person.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's it's really good stuff. I want to go back to something that you said, which is in tough times, you have two paths. You can sit there and let it eat away at you and tear you apart, or you can figure out a way to move forward like you did. What is it that you think helped you choose to move forward, to do the movies and form the foundation, as opposed to go in the other direction?
Well, one of the things was after I passed, I was going through his drawers in his room and just be on the phone and just looking at stuff. And I opened up one drawer and I found 2 notes. One said, here's my username and passwords. And the other one said, tell my story. Sorry. It's funny.
Yeah.
I do this all the time. Some days are harder than others. So yeah, I just decided that I have the ability, I have the resources, and I want to go make a difference and not let this be something that Ryan passed and there's nothing more about that. So, I mean, I think I don't track it, and I'm not ego-wise. Do I care?
Yeah.
I hear the stories. I know we're making a difference. When I go speak, I know there's somebody in that audience that, was there and needed to hear what I had to say, and hopefully go have a different conversation with their spouse, their friends, their wives, their kids. So that's what we do. But I mean, gut punches are like, I think what people also don't quite understand is they happen all the time. Some are worse than others. It's just like what I was saying earlier, but I wake up every day expecting the world just to be what's going to happen next. You go to 2021. I remember my brother calls me up and says, Dad's really sick. He needs to go to the hospital. And he's not listening to me. Can you call him? I said, yeah, sure. So Sunday night, I call my dad.
Right.
And he lived back east. And I said, what the hell's going on? David says you're sick. Well, I'm all right. Get your ass to the hospital in the morning. I'm dealing with this. Just go to the hospital. All right, I'll go to the hospital. And he goes in the hospital, texts me, goes, I'm on my way. Gets there. The next phone call I got is he was dead. That was 2 hours later.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He had signed a do not resuscitate for some odd reason. And he choked while he was coughing. And this was during COVID. He didn't have COVID, but they had so much going on. They just let him die.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
So I can look at my life and go, I could tell you 1,000 things that are amazing about my life, but I can also show you stuff that you're just like, wow, but you don't have a choice, right? Or you do have a choice. You can crawl into a bottle. You can do nothing.
Yeah.
You can feel sorry for yourself.
Yep.
Or you can go live your life and make a difference. And, I chose after that, I was always close to my brother and my sister, and we still are. And we're just a tighter family. And honestly, my dad was a bit of a pain. So family get-togethers are a little easier without him. But yeah, it's like you just have to go on every day. But you have to, no matter what happens to you, right? And you had a terrible thing happen to you, and you chose to move on. I've had terrible things happen to me, and people have had a lot less happen to them who have decided I lost my job and therefore I'm just going to sit on the couch and do nothing every day.
Correct.
And it's just like, that's not. I mean, I feel sorry for those people that can't look at it and get up and get moving. But man, you have to, because life is going to give you bad things and life's going to give you good things, but life's just going to give you things.
It's right. That's right. And I think the hardest things, as you and I have both been through, are the ones that test you. Yeah. And to your point, if you let yourself discover the good part of the bad, it sounds messed up. That's really what it is. You'll be better in the end. You'll be stronger in the end, hopefully. But it can be hard. And I always say, like, I was in a hospital. I had unlimited TV. I mean, I've never watched more of the Today Show than I did when I was in the hospital. I could push a button and people would come and fluff my pillow and bring me whatever type of food I wanted. And I could have some woman do Reiki with me. I mean, but that's not me. I'm at this point, I guess the quote is famous, but the first thing I said when I woke up from my crazy experience, once I knew what had happened, as I said to the doctor, what do I need to do to be back in the classroom in September? And this was, April of 2024. And he laughed at me. And he was like, there's no way. And I'm like, no, seriously, what do I need to do? He's like, you need to listen and you need to give yourself time and you need everything that I tell you to do. I was like, okay, sign me up. And I did. And I was back in the classroom in September. But I didn't have to be. It was because I wanted to be. And I think there's so much, in your case especially, there's so much that you didn't have to do, but you did it.
Even today, I look at my life and go, okay, so I have a lot of people who work with me and work for me, I guess, technically.
Okay.
I don't need to do any of that stuff. I could just go say I'm done, right? But it's not about me. It's about them. It's about me going out there saying, okay, I need to keep doing what I'm doing so that these people can have the lives they have. And not that they're going to be useless without me, because that's not true at all. I'm probably useless without them.
Right.
But I play my role, and my role is there to make sure that these people have success in their lives. And it's selfish of me to say, I'm just going to go retire.
Yes.
Right. There's still, at 58, I still have a lot of, 30 good years in me to still keep doing stuff. And I intend doing stuff and making a difference in the world and fighting through the good times and the bad times and making sure that I'm having the conversations with people every day there. I can help change their world. And, if you look at my email signature, and it's always been this way, it doesn't say CEO, it doesn't say chairman, it doesn't say any of that kind of stuff. It says builder of people.
Yeah.
Because what I want to do every day is make people better. And if I can interact with whoever I'm interacting with and they walk away a little bit better or with a different perspective, or I help them in some way, that's what my life's intention is.
Well, and the great thing is by helping other people, you also learn something about yourself. And I think that is so underappreciated. So question for you is, like, you have all these people that you work with that work for you, however you want to phrase it. When they've gone through their own kind of, life challenge, gut punch, whatever you want to call it, how do you motivate them? Because it's hard. It is so hard to see the good and the bad. What are some things you've said to people over the years?
I mean, just the same conversation we're having right now is that this is just the way life is. Anybody who wakes up and thinks that their life should be a certain way that's not, they deserve something. They're entitled to something. They're entitled to a life that doesn't have any problems. They're entitled to a life that gives them all the money they ever wanted and all the joy they ever wanted and the spouse they always wanted and the kids are perfect. That's just not life. I mean, whatever God, whoever you want to call it, in my mind, is just, I don't think he's in as much control as people think he is. You can pray to him all you want, but I don't think he's going to solve every one of your little problems. He's giving you the ability to solve your own problems. And he wants you or she wants you, however you want to phrase it, right? If it was actually a female God, I think we'd be better off. These would not be such a mess, but who knows? But this is just life we lead, right? No, you're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to a good thing. You're not entitled to bad. You're not entitled to anything. You're not entitled to be in shape. You're not entitled to be healthy. You're not entitled to what you choose to do with the life you've been given and the problems you have is what makes the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not entitled to be rich. You're also not entitled to be poor. Those are both choices.
I want to go back to tell my story. We had Dan on and we talked about the movies and we actually went through a bit of the card game. When someone comes to you and shares a story about how their life has changed because of the work that you've done, because of the foundation, because of the movie, how does that make you feel?
I'm just happy for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel anything.
Yeah.
I'm just happy for them. I'm not doing this out of the ego to make myself feel better. I mean, I'm very happy for them. It doesn't have a feeling for me. As odd as it might sound, I'm happy for them.
No, I get it. I think there's a certain amount of, I would imagine, satisfaction that comes from looking at what you've created. But to your point, you've created it, you've put it out there, and it's up to people to watch the movies. It's up to people to have the conversations. It's up to people to explore, to use the tools that you've created to help solve their own challenges. I know the card game specifically, I just thought was brilliant. I was, reading through some of the questions that were in there with Dana, and I thought, I mean, my kids are older now, but I thought, gosh, if I had something like this when they were 13 or 14.
Well, you should try it now.
I know, I think I have to.
I remember we just put the game out and my partner in the production company, his mother called me up on Christmas Eve, goes, I just had the most amazing conversation with my 52-year-old son using your cards. So we originally designed those for kids, and it turns out people use them for themselves or their spouses. It's just they were really well designed, and that was more Dana and our team that did that than me.
They're great. Yeah.
I think that. What's that? Sorry. I think it's really important, is to look at things, and people need to understand as they watch your podcast, is that the world's not going to get any better in the next few years. Not from my perspective, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are going to get really, really weird and crazy and different in the next few years.
Yes.
And it's just like we're heading into a time that I've never personally been this concerned about the world as I am today. But then you take a look at what's happening with AI and how much the world is going to change in the next 2 to 3 years, and how many jobs are actually going to be changing, and job losses. No matter what anybody tells you, there's going to be job losses, and how our world's going to go through this really, really, really bumpy patch for a few years. And people need to be prepared for that. They need to be prepared for what change is going to happen to them and to their families. They need to be paying attention to it.
And I feel like communication is the key, right? Mm-hmm. So things as silly as it may seem, to pull a card out of the deck and ask somebody a question is as eye-opening as it can be. And as importantly as bonding, family bonding, it can be relationship building. It can be, there's a diner here in New Jersey. And then I think Elias probably knows this, my producer. It's called the 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀 Diner. Okay. And famous for is they have a deck of cards at every table.
Okay.
And the idea is that you chit and chat, right? You pick out the card, you ask a question while you're sitting there waiting for your order to come. And maybe you start a conversation based on that card, or maybe you ignore the cards in general. But I've been in there sometimes with my kids and I pull out a card and, my kids are usually giving me some answer oh no, here she goes again with the questions, right? But it's amazing what it brings up. And it's amazing.
That's a great idea for a diner. That's a wonderful idea for a diner.
Yeah. And it's a great diner. And it's decorated.
At the end of their information, we'll send them a stack of card decks. Yeah.
It's all Alice in Wonderland theme, which is also kind of fun. But but there's so much that comes from conversation. And, I want to go back to something that we were talking about before. And this is this whole idea of mental health and, you never expected something like what happened to have happened in your family. And I hear that from a lot of people. And I think from your experience of living through it now, what are some, when you have people that come to you, as I'm sure you've experienced through your TED Talks or your work with the foundation, what guidance do you give parents for, a lot of, I work with a lot of high school and college students, and a lot of the reasons the students come to me is because the parents feel like their child will not listen to them and will not take their advice. And, I can't tell you the number of times I've had the students say to me, yeah, my parents told me that. I'm like, well, why didn't you listen to your mom and dad? Well, because they're my mom and dad. And that kills me, but it is the common response. What are some tips that you've given to parents that you've met along your journey for building that relationship with their kids early on? How do you get to know your children when your children don't want to get to know you?
I think that parents first thing have to understand that they're intimidating to their kids. Your kids don't want to communicate with you the way we communicate as adults. For example, as adults, if you and I were in the same room right now, we'd be looking each other in the eyes and talking.
Yep.
Right? Because that way we know that I'm listening to you, you're listening to me, and that's how we know that we're on the same page. We're not looking over here, looking over there. We're looking each other in the eyes. That scares the crap out of your kids. They don't want to do.
That's right.
Right. That's why they have better conversations with you while they're in the car, if you haven't noticed, and I'm sure everybody's noticed. Why are they so talkative in the car? Because they know that you can't look them in the eyes. Because you're like, wait, what's going on? They can tell you stuff like, I always tell people, think about a Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and so I'm no longer. But when you go to confession, you go into that booth and you go, okay, there's a thing between you. You're this way, the priest is that way, and you're going, the priest doesn't know who I am. The priest knows who you are. Trust me. And then you're telling him all your deepest, darkest secrets, and he's telling you go do 7 Hail Marys and don't do that again.
Yes.
Because we can tell we want to talk to people that we don't have to look them in the eyes, and kids are very much like that. So when you go, the mistake that parents will make is they'll listen to one of my podcasts or the movies, and they'll go rush into the rooms. The kids, we need to talk. It's like, don't do that. That's why your kids scream at you. Like the only little private space they have in life is that bedroom, right? Is that little space, that little bed, that little whatever. Yes, you paid for it all. I understand it all, but give them their space. Like you've got to let them kind of come to you. Parenting is inconvenient. We all know that there's times when our kids will just be like opening up, and there's times when they don't. And when you push in on the times they don't, it gets worse. But if you lean in on the times they do, you can get little bits more information from them. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to, it's pushing your kids to talk to you is like pushing string.
Yeah.
You can't push string. You're not going to force a child to talk to you who doesn't want to talk to you. You have to wait till they are ready to talk to you, and you have to create environments where they want to. You go for a drive, you go for a hike, you do something they enjoy. It's like, your kids better than I do. It's like, but there's times when they have opened up to you.
Well, one of the things we've done ever since our kids were young, family dinner. Every night we eat dinner together. They're both in college now, but when they're home, it doesn't matter how late it is. It could be 10:30 at night. Something my mom said when my kids my kids grew up, started off in New York City, and both of us were working. I would get home, pick the kids up, whatever. And it was hard to have dinner. So we started this pattern initially of me making dinner for the kids. We'd put them to bed, and then my husband and I would, right? And my mom pulled me aside one day when she was finished. She's like, "Nope, this stops today." And I was like, she's like, "You need to eat dinner with your children."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because that's when they talk." Like, over food? She's like, "Yes." And I will tell you, and I still share this with her, that was one of the single most important pieces of advice she ever gave me. And, there were some nights where I made stuff that someone didn't like, but in the end of the day, here we are decades later. And that's when we talk, that and the car ride. It's funny you mentioned the car ride. I have so many girlfriends who we would literally fight. I mean, this sounds goofy, but among the women, among the moms, we'd fight over who got to do pickup, because we knew the conversations in the car between your child and their friends, those were kind of, I'll call them magical moments, because you learn stuff about what went on in school. So
sure.
To your point, the last thing a kid wants to do when they get home from school is give you a dissertation of how their day was. They don't want that. They want to maybe eat a snack and go up into their sanctuary, aka their room, and do their thing. But there are those times, as you said, where they open up. And usually it's the car ride. Maybe it's you're walking the dog or the pet, whatever you have. Maybe it's, you're going to a football game or a soccer game or a cross tournament, whatever. And they talk. And that really magic.
So dinners were our thing. They always have been. So we had, there's never any, I have music on in the background because I like music, but there's no TV, there's no iPads, and no phones at the table. And we'd sit there for hours. And we had a little thing we used to do where whoever had the funniest story at dinner, we would turn that into what we call the dinner conversation of the night. And then we would post that on Facebook. And just for fun, we did this for like 5 years when the kids were younger, just until Ryan passed, actually. And then we post the dinner conversation on there, and then and we see how many likes and comments we get off the dinner conversations.
Wow.
And my friends would be like, "You have to turn that into a book." And I'm like, "Really?" So we actually did. We actually turned our dinner conversations into this book called Dinner Conversations.
Oh my gosh.
Which has, I'm not saying go buy it, but I'm saying it's like, there's all these different, every night had a different funny conversation
That's awesome.
And yeah, that was, in fact, we're the kind of family that, we go to dinner at a restaurant when we were out traveling at 7:00 at night, and we're closing it down at 10:30. We're the last ones there because we're just talking.
Yeah.
And that's people are missing out on that so much these days. It's like, I get your lives are busy. I get everybody's got so many things going on, but those family dinners are just so vitally important, and they don't protect everything. They didn't stop Ryan from doing what he did. Right. But I look back on that and go, I know I had a good relationship with my son, and I know that his mental health got in the way of reality. But it wasn't necessarily because we were bad parents.
No, not at all. No. And I think that there is, this phrase of family togetherness. There are times it can be tough, but what I've learned, and I only have 2 kids, but what I've learned is sometimes you have to push, right? And then this just happened recently with something with us, with one of them. But if you push and if you persevere and you explain why you're pushing, right? Now, don't just push, but explain the why. You will get through it. And not all the time. But in my experience, in the majority of the time, it turns out okay. Because, it is parenting is a gift, but it's a challenge, and there is no book. I remember when we had our first kid, we were so happy, whatever. And, you go through those courses in the hospital where, you learn, as a woman, you learn how to breastfeed, you learn how to swaddle, and then you come home and there it is, this little bundle of joy and all this stuff that you supposedly need for it. And, the hospital doesn't discharge you with a, baby 101 manual. You just kind of have to figure it out.
And I'm not even sure where that little bundle of joy came from, because all my kids don't remember the big little bundles of joy. They were crying, they were screaming, there was no joy in those first.
No. And then, I don't know. And then they grow up. And those moments, those family dinners, those family vacations, whenever you can do them, those trips to the lacrosse game or the football match or whatever, that's kind of what it's all about. And I think, to your point, so many people miss the memo on that. We're all so busy, with our phones or, posting on social media, blah, 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 that the
Yeah.
joy,
And it's not just that. It's like people have heard, I mean, there's lots of people struggling themselves, right? As adults.
yeah,
It's not just, it's not, I think there's a misnomer with people, and I'm not saying you said this, but people say, well, people just need to get off their phones and not being on social media. It's like, sure, but parents are also challenged in their own life, right?
they are.
They're challenged in their jobs, they're challenged in their careers, they're challenged in whether or not they feel good about themselves. I mean, the world's a very heavy place.
Yes, it started with COVID and it's only gone downhill from there. You know,
Yeah.
I know my daughter one day, I think it was right after the pandemic, the heart of the pandemic, she said to me, we were talking about something, and she goes, "You don't get it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, you didn't go to school through a pandemic." And I said, you're right, I didn't. Fair.
Yeah. But
And I find that what I've learned in talking with my kids, and I learn every day, is I never tell them what to do. Never. I offer suggestions. And these days with my daughter, I'll say to her, "Well, do you want me to answer this question from my current perspective as a Gen Xer? Or do you want me to try to view it from when I was your age, when I was 19? And some days she's like, "I want the mom perspective." And then she's like, "Okay, if you can do it, try to remember what it was like to be 19. I'm like, "Yeah, I know I'm old, but try to remember back. What would you have done?" And I find that, and I'm not saying I'm the best parent in the world, because I'm certainly not. I'm certainly flawed, like most people, like everybody is, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. But by offering suggestions and letting her ultimately, or him ultimately, make the decision, it has helped. It has helped.
I think it's important though for kids, it's not about your daughter in particular, but kids who say, well, you don't understand because you didn't go through the pandemic and have to not go to school. It's like, okay, fair. However, how about all the people who had to go to war at different points in history? Like you can't say things like, "Oh, well, you don't understand because I didn't do that." It's like, I would never say to someone, "You don't understand because you never lost your kid," because we all have our own stuff we've gone through, and everybody has. How you deal with your stuff is different. And my kids were stuck at home during the pandemic. My son was up in Portland, kind of in his cubicle in his school. But I'm going, that's not an excuse for how you lived your life now. I don't get to say to people, I get to act this way because I lost my son.
Right.
That's not an excuse for me to be an asshole to anybody.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's like, I'm sorry, we've all had our stuff. We've all had our stuff, and we all have to get through our stuff. And I'm sorry if I don't sound like I'm feeling sorry for you. I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't feel sorry for others.
And I mean, personally, like, as we were talking before, I don't want anybody, for what I went through, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I got through it. It wasn't easy, but I got through it. And here we are, in this conversation. And what you went through wasn't easy, but you got through it. And here you are.
Well, I mean, and we'll never get through it. You still have to deal with your stuff. I still have to deal with my stuff, but life still has to go on. That's right. And you make the best of what you got. And if you don't, well, that's on you, not on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that is so true. Okay. So last conversation bit here. Sure. I ask this to everybody. So for someone that is feeling stuck, whether, just life, like maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, maybe, there's so many reasons we feel stuck, especially these days. On the East Coast today, we had a lot of snow. You don't have to shovel. But like, in all seriousness, Jason, what is your advice for people that just feel like stuck? What are some tips?
Keep moving. When you stop moving, that's when you're truly stuck. Keep moving. Yeah. Keep going on with your day. Because when you wake up tomorrow, it'll be a different day. I mean, my favorite days are the ones when things are going really, really well. When everything's great today. And it's like noon. I'm like, my God, I have so much good news today. I'm like, when's that other shoe going to drop? Because I know it's going to drop.
It always does.
It always does. Like there's no single day that's all good or all bad.
No.
But there's this, if you just get rid of the entitlement that you deserve something, because no one deserves anything.
Yeah.
Like you accept the life you have, the good and the bad, and realize everybody's got good and bad.
That's right.
Every single person has good and bad. The people in Greenland right now are not feeling very good.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it's very true. But you're right. Everybody has the good and the bad, and it's how you roll through it. I always say to me, life is like, and you're in California, so you can appreciate this analogy. Life is like standing on the beach where the waves break, and some come at your ankles, and some come at your calves, some come at your knees, and some maybe, knock you over. But that's what it's like. It's like a series of things that move in and out. And as you've said before, it's how you roll with those waves. It's how you roll with those punches that really define who we are.
That's what it is. I wish there was some magic thing I could tell people. Say, if you just go do this, everything's gonna be better. But there's not.
There's not. Yeah.
And with that, we should probably wrap it up.
I think so. What else should we talk about? All right, Jason, thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program today.
I really enjoyed it, Kathryn. Thank you for the conversation.
My pleasure. And I appreciate you telling your story. So thank you. So thanks everyone for listening to today's episode of The Gut Punch. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode of Gut Punch. I hope you found inspiration, because no matter how hard life hits, there's always a way forward. Make sure to follow or subscribe to Gut Punch on your favorite podcast platform. If you know someone who could use a little inspiration, share this episode with them. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay strong. See you in the next episode.